Grand Graceland Hotel, reopened after 40 years of haunting silence. Maya's livestream was meant to capture ghosts and mysteries, but when she crosses the threshold into room 313, everything changes. Trapped in a nightmarish time loop, Maya faces restless spirits and unbreakable curses. This is a story of terror, secrets, and a door that never closes. Stay with me as we uncover what really lurks behind room 313. The rain tapped gently on the windshield as Maya parked her car in front of the Grand Graceland Hotel, its towering Gothic frame silhouetted against a sky heavy with storm clouds. The building looked like something pulled from an old horror film, ivy crawling up the sides, windows stained with age, and a grand rusted sign that read, Graceland Hotel, reopened after 40 years. Her phone buzzed with notifications as her followers anticipated the live stream. Paranormal content was trending again, and Maya was known for pushing boundaries. This time she promised something truly unforgettable, the first ever solo tour inside the notorious haunted hotel. Graceland had been closed since 1984, after a string of disappearances culminated in the unexplained vanishing of an entire family. Who stayed in room 313? Authorities never found any evidence. Eventually they gave up. The hotel was boarded up and left to decay. But now, a new owner had refurbished the place just enough to let in thrill seekers and ghost hunters for a price. Maya's sponsorship covered one night, and she planned to document every shadow, creak, and whisper for her audience. She stepped inside, camera already recording, her voice bright with false confidence. The lobby was eerily pristine, as though time had been frozen. A crystal chandelier hung overhead, still shimmering despite the grime. Velvet curtains framed the tall, dust-covered windows. There was no sign of modern renovations, no new lights, no lobby music, nothing to break the illusion that the 70s still lived here. Behind the front desk stood a woman in a burgundy uniform, with a brittle smile and eyes that didn't blink. "Welcome, Miss Chen," she said without checking any reservation. "You're our first guest in over 40 years. Her voice was smooth, rehearsed, and Maya couldn't decide if the woman was a method actor or just naturally unsettling. She handed Maya a vintage brass key attached to a wooden tag, room 312. As she walked down the long hallway, her boots echoed on the marble floor. The wallpaper was peeling slightly, and old portraits lined the walls, faces of previous guests, their expressions blank, yet somehow watching. Maya pointed her camera at each one, narrating for her audience, pretending she didn't feel the chill crawling up her spine. Room 312 was across the hall from the infamous room 313. Its door was padlocked with a rusted chain and marked with a faded "Do Not Enter" sign. Maya lingered, filming it. "This is it," she whispered. "The door they say never opens." She didn't notice the reflection in the brass room number plaque, where a shadow seemed to flicker behind her. She entered 312 and immediately started unpacking her gear, thermal cameras, EVP recorders, and a backup power bank. The livestream buzzed with thousands of viewers posting reactions, jokes, and theories. As the sun set, the mood shifted. The lights dimmed, though she hadn't touched the switch. The chandelier in the hallway swayed ever so slightly. Maya shrugged it off. "Probably just wind," she said into the camera, though she couldn't remember seeing any open windows. Hours passed. She explored the second floor, showed off the antique elevator that groaned when called, and recorded what she thought were faint whispering sounds, though her mic barely picked them up. Just before midnight, Maya returned to room 12. She scrolled through her comments, smiling, until one made her pause. "Don't open the door." No username, no profile picture. The comment disappeared as soon as she clicked on it. Another appeared immediately after. "It watches you from the dark." She laughed nervously for the camera. "Okay, who's trolling me?" But she locked the door anyway, double-checked the chain, and turned off the light. At 3:13 a.m., a sharp knock jolted her awake. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, the red light of her recording equipment blinking faintly in the dark. Another knock. She grabbed her flashlight and tiptoed to the door. Nothing on the peephole. She turned slowly toward the hallway window and froze. Room 313's door, chained and sealed just hours ago, was now standing wide open. Maya stood frozen, the faint light from her phone illuminating only the edges of the hotel hallway. Room 313's door, which had been locked shut with rusted chains just hours earlier, now stood ajar, its dark interior yawning like an open mouth. The old brass numbers gleamed softly in the gloom, and from inside there was nothing but a wall of blackness, deeper than just the absence of light. Her breath caught in her throat. She glanced back at room 312, the door still cracked behind, her offering a narrow escape. But the camera was rolling and thousands of viewers were watching. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, the kind of moment that built careers or ended them. She stepped cautiously into the hallway, her flashlight shaking slightly as she raised it. "Okay," she whispered into the lens. "We're doing this." Each footstep echoed louder than it should have, as if the hallway were hollow beneath her. The ornate carpet seemed damp beneath her shoes, though she couldn't see any water. She stopped at the threshold of room 313, shining, the flashlight inside. The beam illuminated only part of the old room: faded wallpaper, a dust-covered vanity, and what looked like a large mirror standing across from the bed. A cold draft blew from within. It carried a faint scent, floral perfume mixed with something older, more metallic. Her chat feed slowed to a crawl. Some viewers typed nervously in all caps, begging her to turn back, while others egged her on. Maya hesitated, then stepped inside. As soon as her foot crossed the threshold, the air changed. It felt heavier, colder, as though she'd entered a basement instead of a bedroom. The moment she entered, her flashlight flickered once, then died completely. "What the hell?" she muttered, smacking it against her palm. The room plunged into complete darkness. Behind her, the door groaned and slowly began to close. The only light came from her phone, which now displayed a blank livestream screen. "No signal," it read, although just moments ago she had full bars. The temperature dropped again, and she could see her breath now, thick and fast. Then, somewhere in the black, she heard it. Soft, rhythmic footsteps, padding across the floor, not hers, not in sync with her breathing, and not retreating. Getting closer. She turned, holding her phone like a weapon, the camera lens trembling in her grasp. In the faint reflection of the mirror across the room, she saw a shape, tall and unmoving. At first, it looked like her reflection. But then, the figure smiled and Maya didn't. Her own face in the mirror remained still, wide-eyed with fear. The mirror image smiled wider. She stumbled backward, heart racing. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, she thought maybe it was an illusion, some trick of her stressed mind. But then the smell intensified. That same perfume, now overwhelming, mingled with the thick scent of rotting wood. The mirror image took a step forward, though Maya had not moved. The vanity drawer slid open by itself with a creak, and inside she saw something glinting, an old, cracked Polaroid. She reached for it slowly. The photograph showed a group of 5 people standing in room 313, dressed in outdated clothing, all smiling, but their eyes were scratched out. At the far right, almost out of frame, stood a 6th figure. She recognized the coat. It was hers. A high-pitched whine began to ring in her ears, and her vision blurred slightly. The mirror showed her now, not just standing, but smiling just like the others. Her phone buzzed once in her hand, and when she looked down, a new message had appeared on screen, even though there was no signal. "You're already here." She dropped the photo, backing away, but the room was no longer the same. The doorway behind her had vanished. The walls had changed. The bed was neatly made now, with rose petals across the sheets. A candle flickered on the nightstand. She turned again to the mirror, and her reflection, still smiling, reached out toward the glass. Maya couldn't breathe. The reflection in the mirror mimicked her every move except the most important one. It was still smiling, wide and unnatural, while Maya trembled with terror. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The room around her felt like it was closing in. The walls, once faded with time, now looked clean, freshly painted in the same vintage rose gold pattern seen in the old photos. It was as if she had stepped backward into a preserved moment from the past, one that should not have been accessible anymore. The air was thick, humming with something just out of hearing, like a voice murmuring beneath the floorboards. She stumbled, away from the mirror, her phone clutched tight in one hand, the flickering screen now frozen on her own image, but not the one the front camera should be showing. It was like a recording from the outside, watching her from the hallway. The angle shifted slightly, as if someone were holding a second camera just outside the door. But the door was gone. The walls were now seamless. She began to pound on them, hoping something would give way, but the surface felt like solid stone, beneath the wallpaper. With every blow, the lights in the chandelier above her pulsed brighter, casting twisted shadows that danced along the ceiling in slow, deliberate spirals. A soft knock echoed from somewhere within the room. It wasn't on the wall or the mirror. It came from the wardrobe standing tall near the bed. The knock repeated, louder this time. 3 slow taps, then silence. Maya stared at it, her breath caught in her throat. The old wooden door of the wardrobe creaked open by a few inches on its own. Inside she could only see darkness, but it felt deeper than a closet should be. She raised her phone again, using the camera as a flashlight. For a split second, the screen revealed a pale hand, resting just inside the doorway, fingers curled, unmoving, before the image cut to static. The whispering began again, but louder now, more distinct. Her name, over and over. Maya, Maya, Maya! Spoken in different voices, men and women, young and old, all layered atop each other. The wardrobe door opened wider. She couldn't move. Her limbs felt like they were bound by invisible strings, her body no longer under her full control. Then, slowly, something began to crawl out. It wasn't fast. It wasn't jerky or aggressive. It moved with the unsettling grace of something that had practiced crawling out of dark spaces for years. A woman, or at least something shaped like one, emerged. Her face was pale, eyes sunken so deep they were like pits of coal. Her gown was soaked, dragging behind her like it had come up from a flooded basement. She didn't look at Maya right away. Instead, she faced the mirror, tilting her head slightly, as if admiring her own reflection. Maya's own mirrored self had vanished. Then the woman's head snapped toward her. Maya turned and tried to run, but the room shifted again. The floor stretched like melting wax, elongating the space between her and the bed. Every step felt heavier. Her breath hitched. Behind her, the woman whispered something unintelligible, but it had weight. It pressed against Maya's ears and filled her chest with dread. She made it to the side of the bed, where the vanity light flickered again, revealing a notebook that hadn't been there before. The cover was cracked leather embossed with the number 313. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of pages, all written in the same shaky handwriting. I can't leave. I was just visiting. They said it was only for one night. Each page repeated the same variations. Some were written in languages she didn't understand. Others were scribbled so hard the paper had torn. One page had a drawing, her face, unmistakably her, eyes wide, in terror. She flipped to the final page, and there in fresh ink were the words, "You are the key." Maya's hands trembled as she held the notebook. Her eyes locked on the final words, "You are the key." The ink looked fresh, still glistening as if it had just been written. She looked around the room, searching for some kind of clue, something that would help her make sense of it all. But the room had shifted again. The bed was gone, the mirror was shattered, pieces suspended mid-air like they had exploded and frozen in time. The wardrobe had closed, but the faint sound of weeping still came from behind its doors. Her phone flickered in her hand, now cycling rapidly through distorted images. Grainy footage showed different rooms, places she hadn't visited yet. One of the screens paused on a scene of the hotel lobby, but the desk clerk was no longer smiling. She was staring directly into the lens, eyes black and mouth slightly open, as if mouthing something that couldn't be heard. Maya tried to press buttons, swipe the screen, even turn it off. Nothing responded. The device seemed to have become part of whatever force had overtaken the room. Suddenly, all the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed everything. Maya froze, the weight of the air pressing down on her. She felt the shift before she heard it. a presence behind her, breathing slow and heavy. It wasn't the same as before. This wasn't cold or ethereal, it felt real, solid, close enough to touch her skin. She didn't turn around. She couldn't. Something inside her screamed that looking would make it real. That looking might be the last thing she ever did. The breath behind her grew louder, steadier, and then it spoke. "You opened it." The voice wasn't like the others. It didn't whisper or echo. It was direct, as if someone had leaned in close and spoken directly into her ear. Maya spun around, but there was no one there. Just the empty room, a low hum in the air, and the notebook still open on the floor. But now the words had changed. The page she had seen before was blank. New words scrawled across it in real time, forming letter by letter. "Don't leave the room. It follows you if you leave." Her breath caught in her chest. Her instincts screamed, had her to run, but the warning rooted her to the spot. Every inch of her body was tense, every sound in the room suddenly amplified. The slow tick of a grandfather clock from somewhere outside, the occasional groan of old wood shifting above her, and the return of that sound, the weeping. This time it was louder, and it wasn't coming from behind the wardrobe anymore. It was beneath the floor. Maya crouched slowly, pressing her ear to the faded carpet. The weeping grew clearer. It was definitely a child, sobbing softly, whispering words she couldn't understand. The floor was cold against her skin, and as she listened, something tapped gently back. 3 slow knocks, the same rhythm from earlier. She stood quickly, backing away, her eyes darting to the vanity. In the cracked mirror above it, something began to crawl across the ceiling. Pale limbs, jointed wrong, slithered in slow, unnatural movements. It made no noise, it cast no shadow, but it was there. The camera on her phone started recording again, on its own. The screen showed her from behind. The creature above her was clearer on the screen, its face just above her head, its mouth open in a silent scream. She turned, but the ceiling was empty. The reflection showed otherwise. The thing was closer now. In the mirror, it reached toward her shoulder, fingers inches from her skin. She stepped backward into the corner of the room, clutching the notebook to her chest, heart pounding. Then, from the corner of her eye, she noticed the wallpaper was peeling. Just a little. Enough to show that beneath it someone had written on the walls. Words scratched over and over in different handwriting. Some were faint, others looked like they had been etched in with fingernails. She moved closer to inspect them. They all said the same thing. Room 313 is a door. Doors need keys. Maya's mind raced, the chilling realization settling in with every breath she took. She wasn't just trapped inside a haunted room. She was caught in a prison, a loop with no escape. The idea that she might be one of many terrified souls, trapped within the hotel's walls, sent a cold wave down her spine. She looked back toward the entrance or where the door had been, but only a solid wall remained. The boundaries of room 313 had shifted into something otherworldly, no longer part of the hotel she knew, but a realm warped by the restless spirits who'd been caught here long before her. She clutched the cracked notebook tightly, feeling the weight of all the lost stories pressed into its fragile pages. The scribbles and drawings from past victims, all desperate attempts to communicate, to warn anyone who might come after them. The realization hit her hard. Each visitor who had dared enter room 313 became part of this endless cycle, forever replaying their last moments, trapped between time and space. Her phone buzzed suddenly, the screen lighting up with a message from an unknown number. The text was simple, chilling. "Welcome home." Her heart slammed in her chest. She tried to respond, to type back, but the keyboard wouldn't register her touch. Instead, the screen filled with static, then cleared to reveal a live feed of the hotel lobby. There, standing behind the front desk, was the clerk, the same woman who had greeted her earlier. But now her eyes glowed a deep, unnatural black, and her smile stretched impossibly wide. Slowly, the clerk's hand reached out to the camera, as if to grab Maya through the screen itself. Maya's breath caught. The live stream had ended abruptly, hours ago, but the video feed on her phone was live and ongoing. She pressed the screen, desperate to shut it down, but the phone slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor. The screen cracked but continued to glow, A cold gust swept through the room, carrying with it whispers from the walls, voices from those trapped here before. They sang out in a haunting chorus, blending pleas, warnings, and curses all at once. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, a living entity breathing around her, shrinking the space, tightening the cage. Maya sank to the floor, pulling the notebook close. She flipped through the pages one last time. On the bottom of the last page was a simple drawing. Dozens of phones lying side by side, faces of past visitors reflected in their cracked screens, eyes wide in silent terror. It was a grim gallery of the lost, each victim forever documented by their own devices, their souls trapped like digital ghosts. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the empty hallway outside. They were slow and deliberate, the sound of someone or something approaching. Maya's heart pounded as she scrambled backward, clutching the notebook like a lifeline. The footsteps grew louder, stopping just beyond where the door should be. The air thickened with tension. Without warning, the front desk clerk appeared in the corner of the room. Her form was translucent, shimmering like a mirage. She smiled that same unsettling smile and reached out a hand toward Maya. "You're not leaving," she whispered. "Not this time." Maya tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. The room seemed to pulse around her, the walls bending and warping. She felt herself being pulled toward the clerk, unable to resist the invisible force dragging her forward. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was the clerk's eyes, black voids filled with endless hunger. Back in the hotel lobby, the phone Maya had dropped continued to glow faintly on the floor. Its screen lit up with a new message. "Another guest has arrived." The camera zoomed in slowly on the broken lock of room 313, the chain hanging loosely as the door creaked open once again.